Hi there, I'm Christian Story, Pre-Construction Manager for Sierra View General Contractor.
And I'm Jeff Clark. I'm the domain expert for Live Oak Bank's Wine and Craft Beverage Group.
We're excited today to talk to you about construction and how to be keeping those projects on time and on budget.
There's a lot of things to consider, so let's get started.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself, Jeff, and Live Oak.
So Live Oak Bank is the second largest SBA lender in the United States, and we are the #1 SBA lender to the wine industry for the last 2 years running. All we do is provide business financing for wineries. Quite often that's to finance growth, which involves construction of production, storage, or hospitality facilities. Unlike many banks, Live Oak Bank has a dedicated construction group. We do this because you can't really be a part-time construction lender. It's a full-time vocation. So we have a dedicated group of people that all they do is construction loans, from qualifying the general contractor to satisfying the liens to closing the loan and terming it out. So Christian, tell me about yourself and Sierra View.
So I've been with the company for just over a year now, and Sierra View General Contractor has been in existence for the last 4 decades. Our owner, Mark Davis, started the company back in 1979, and our focus is to be building beautiful commercial buildings. We focus on wineries, tasting rooms, industrial cold storage warehouses, restaurants, retail facilities, and a number of others. Why we're here today is to be talking to you about a service that we believe is going to be assisting our clients and being able to make things a lot easier for them, known as pre-construction. So Jeff, tell me what a bank is looking for in a potential borrower.
Several things. We're looking at architectural design and a contractor budget. What we're trying to figure out is, can you afford this project, and will it benefit you, and will you get it done on time?
Gotcha.
We look at a business plan with financial projections, because that quantifies your ability to repay that loan as agreed. And that's really what we're looking for. We're looking to get repaid as agreed.
And that's one of the areas where Sierra View can assist you and also the clients, and being able to, as you're going through that project, being able to provide a budget as you're going through the design phase. Being able to look at what the cost is going to be right in its initial schematic design. And then as the project continues to be designed, we're able to tighten those numbers up and give the client and also the bank a great confidence in that number being real.
And that's so important, because you have to remember, this is the riskiest loan a bank can make. We're loaning money on something that's not there yet. So the accuracy of those budgets and the timeliness are really crucial. We look at historical financial operating history to see if, are your trends positive? Are you going the right direction? Can you justify the magnitude of this project? And then we're going to look at your credit history to make sure you have clean credit scores and things of that nature.
So another thing that we wanted to be talking to you about was some of the biggest mistakes that we see clients bringing to you and I out there. And there's a number of them, but just to begin with, we were just talking about budgeting, not having a plan, not having a budget that was accurate. I know that makes it difficult for being able to, on our side, being able to construct the project, because if the funds aren't there, simply said it's not going to happen. Also, hiring the wrong people. The wrong architect, wrong consultant, the wrong engineer, the wrong contractor for that matter. Those are things that are going to be setting back. And I'd imagine also for clients, hiring the wrong bank is an issue.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've seen banks want to get into the wine industry because it's sexy. And they go through a down cycle, and it's not quite as sexy. It's a dog-eat-dog world. So you want a bank that understands the cycles of the business, understands the business itself, because otherwise I think you're just asking for trouble.
Absolutely. Some of the other things that we were just talking about, of not having that budget, not having the right bank, not having the right person, it all comes down to just lack of planning. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand that is really crucial to not only the contractor, but also, I imagine, to the bank, is giving that confidence that they've done their due diligence, that they've taken a look at what are the things that are necessary. For instance, timing or scheduling. That is one of the biggest things that I've seen to be a difficult thing for any new client, is they have no idea the amount of time that's needed to prepare in constructing a project. Also, milestones, believe it or not. Even after all the work that we may have done for them in laying out exactly how we're going to be building that building, putting together those budgets for those individuals, It's having those milestones that are being presented to them, meaning needing to make a decision. Are they ready to be biting the bullet and saying, okay, I want to go forth on that project? Yes, we approve this design, continue with the design phase.
So Christian, what should a potential borrower consider when looking at a properly structured budget?
Well, pre-construction is a toolbox that enables the client to be able to start doing their budgeting. We've found that if a client is able to take 1%, just a single percent of their overall construction budget, they are able to save between 10 and 25% of their overall money needed to fund that project. It also has benefits in being able to do some value engineering and some life cycle costing. These are things that can assist in the budget process. Another thing, Jeff, that should be considered when doing your project is what are the costs? There's going to be hard costs and there's going to be soft costs. Soft costs, what are they? Going to be permits, utility hookup fees, plan checks, entitlements, just to name a few. And then your hard costs, well, that's the physical materials that you're going to be using. You might be able to look at whether or not you're going to be using steel, wood, or you're going to be substituting some other type of hybrid material. Mm-hmm. Lastly, owner-furnished equipment. That is something that also is sadly not considered. Case in point, right here, we're looking at behind us here in this tasting room. We've got these in the fermentation room. We've got all these stainless steel tanks. Everything that goes into this tasting room itself, all the barware, all the furniture, all the components that are necessary to be giving that clients a fantastic experience.
And those tanks have to be built. So that means you got to get a down payment in order to get in line, and then your lender needs to understand progress payments, and then that budget process needs to make sure that those tanks and everything else is delivered in a timely fashion so as to not delay the project.
Absolutely. And to assist in that portion of budgeting and proper budgeting, this is another service that CRV is able to offer, which is to be giving budgeting all throughout the design phase. There are three components for design. It's going to be schematic design, which is your initial concept phase. What is it that I'm trying to, my dream, I want to see the basics of what it's going to look like. We'll provide a budget right at that moment. Once you've given an approval for that area, then you get into design development. This is where you're going to start bringing in some of your other type of services, your HVAC, your electrical, your plumbing. And once that design has been done, we'll give another budget. What's nice about that is it really starts tightening up the overall costs and giving a confidence factor to not only the client, but also to the bank, and most importantly, making sure it's still within the means of the, I'm assuming, Live Oak being able to give to the lendee. And then lastly, construction documents. This is the last phase of design, being able to finalize the overall design to be able to give to the city and have their planning department make an approval on it, or to be making adjustments. We'll do yet another budget on that, and at that point, that's when we're able to lock a price and be able to give to the client the number that they need ultimately to get a loan.
Excellent. So Christian, we've had some problem construction loans, not just Live Oak Bank, but throughout my career, where they hired somebody that was their friend, hadn't really done a winery before, but they had full confidence in that person, and come to find out that general contractor really didn't understand the intricacies of it, the permitting process, that annual event of chaos known as harvest, and getting a roof on that thing. Yeah. Tell us why it's so important to hire a general contractor that specializes in building wineries.
Yeah, well said. There are a number of different kind of contractors out there. There's contractors that focus on residential. There's contractors that focus on commercial. What CRV does is we focus on commercial buildings. So here's a perfect example of what you've talked about. There have been many times where CRV's been asked to come and to step in after a friend has hired a residential pro, being able to build their commercial entity, just to find out having the same type of problems that you've just spoken about. They don't have that relationship with the city. They don't have the experience with some of the sub-base to be able to come in and get the work done timely and on budget. And so that is probably one of the first areas that you need to be focusing on, to be looking at who you're going to be hiring. You also find that architects are a very important aspect in the decision tree too. Architects are specialized in different entities too, residential and also commercial. Architects are very good at being able to take that creative idea that is coming from the clients and be able to put it to paper and to show to the clients what their dreams might look like. However, because the industry is changing all the time, architects aren't necessarily going to have the ability of staying in touch with what construction costs are. And that's another differentiating item of why you want to hire a competent contractor that has that experiences tied to that industry, is continuously understanding the costs to construct items. So contractors have that sub-base to be able to be building the project in the most costly and efficient manner. We also have the expertise to be taking a look at the site and determining what are going to be the least costs to the client. Example, an architect may be laying out the building on the site, but they didn't realize being able to put the utility closer to the street. That in itself can be saving a client thousands of dollars, $50,000 to $100,000, just simply in the location of that utility. Another value engineering aspect that a contractor is able to offer to a client might be just in the roof design itself, whether or not to be going with a steel deck or a hybrid type roof system. That alone will also be assisting in the cost of the project. The type of roof too. You're going to be going with a single ply that's going to be able to give you 20 to 40 years in its life. It's going to be lighter. It's going to be able to reflect materials. It's costly, so it's going to be maybe $25,000 to $50,000 more depending on the roof size. Versus, are you going to just go with a single ply that's 50 to 20 years? These are the things that contractors are able to offer to our clients and be able to give them choices so that they can see the total value of that project.
So, Christian, tell me some of the consequences of improper planning.
We've seen a number of examples of that. One story would be a beautiful winery that we were building in the central portion of California. The individual had a tremendous amount of money, and we were building this gorgeous winery, but money can't save you. There was an unfortunate situation where a private tasting room could not be built on account that there were complaints from those around the construction site. And because of that, the city blocked a tasting room permit. So that's just one example of improper planning. And had we been able to reach out to those neighbors, give them a little bit of heads notice of what was going to be taking place, there might have been less resistance to having that tasting room come in place.
You know, that's a very good point, because with the success of the wine industry, they've developed some political backlash in certain areas to where that NIMBY aspect, and you can't blame people, you know, but they don't dig into that early enough. They figure, since I bought the property, they're just going to let me do what I want to do, which in some areas you can still do that, but in other areas like Napa County, you can't.
Absolutely not, no. There's a lot of regulations as to what can and cannot be done. Just even terracing, for instance, of the vineyards itself, that seems to be a very important thing that people don't even take into consideration.
Watershed, view shed.
Yep.
Are you going to have weddings, traffic, dust? There's a lot of things to think about.
Another thing too, we had highlighted this a little bit earlier, was just scheduling. You had talked about something that's very important in this industry, that is harvest. We understand that. It is coming whether you like it or not. It will be here whether it be the end of July, August, September, depending on your varietal. But being able to start that project on time and making sure that the subs are all in place, and that project is done so that you as the owner, your winemaker, can be doing their job for when that fruit comes in, and it's coming in, for it to be able to be processed beautifully and to make some exceptional wine.
You make a great point. Only God knows when that fruit's coming in, so the more planning you can do up front, the better.
Some other things too of improper planning that I've seen actually in the past is being able to be focusing on the permitting and zoning, not really understanding what that piece of land is capable of being able to take with it. So that's an issue. Alcohol licensing, and making sure that that also is taken care of and thought of ahead of time, so that as you're constructing this gorgeous facility, do you have the ability of being able to run your business?
Yeah.
Some other mistakes too that we've seen too of just seeing a building half built. I think that goes back to that scenario where where the design was done completely, the project was moving along, and all of a sudden budget runs out. I'm sure that is something that you're absolutely deathly scared about.
That is the worst case scenario for a bank, is to have what they call a break in the chain of title, because you have contractors' liens that take precedence over the bank liens. And once there's a break in the chain of title, it is very difficult, if at all possible, to have another lender come in and actually take that project over. So yeah, that is like the kiss of death.
Absolutely. One of the examples that I've seen where that's taken place too is something we were highlighting and talking about earlier, was that of having to redesign things. In other words, the clients and the group of individuals that they hired the wrong people, which required them to redesign it. That in itself, as you can imagine, well, now you're measuring it once, twice, three times, and you're cutting once, twice, three times, instead of just cutting it once. And so being able to reduce the redesign is going to reduce your overall costs and keep within the budget, and making sure that the money that you're using from Live Oak is used efficiently and gets the project done.
One of the most common mistakes we see is borrowers trying to save money when in actuality they're jumping over dollars to save pennies. Can you tell us some of the benefits of paying for quality upfront versus trying to cut corners?
Absolutely. I think you're going to find, going back to that toolbox, you're going to find with a competent contractor that you are going to pay some money. We had talked about earlier about if you just set aside 1% of your overall construction costs towards pre-construction services, you're going to be able to save 10 to 25% of your budget. And this is through a couple of portions that are in the toolbox. Pre-construction would involve constructability review, seeing whether or not that site that you wanted to be putting that building, is it suitable to do that? If you were to choose this, for instance, we've had this one winery that we were considering building, and that we're right now working with the client. They wanted to be building on a hillside that was going to be requiring a lot of cut and fill. It's going to be costing over $1 million just to be developing on that site. And by being able to do a look at the overall site, we found another location on their property that was able to eliminate that completely and reduce that overall cost, and put the money towards building the winery as opposed to digging dirt. So that's one example. Scheduling is another aspect, and being able to be looking at what is going to be needed to get the project into construction and into its final phases of being wrapped up, turning over the occupancy to that client and getting them into business.
Well, no, on scheduling, if we can take a second on that,
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you're herding a lot of cats there. You've got other people's schedules outside of your control. You have only limited resources within your own company. So yes, it's important for you all, everybody, to agree on this date, this will happen, in order for the next step to be taken.
Absolutely, absolutely. Taking that one step further of you've done the scheduling, you're ensuring that the project is moving along, and you're going to be through that process too. In that scheduling, we're going to be offering cost updates. I think that's something that I've really seen as a great value to the clients, making sure that as we're building it, are we staying on budget? Are we staying on budget? Are we staying on budget? That's something.
You're warming my cold banker's heart here.
And then last but not least, another area too, that should you find that the budget is starting to get to grow, that there are some unforeseen issues in the construction of the project, this is where another pre-construction service we offer, which is known as value engineering. Being able to take a look at the existing design, and if we were to be able to slightly modify, whether it be a material, whether it be a slightly different type of design, say a roof structure, those types of options given to the client and also to the bank allow us to maybe pull back some budget and being able to, again, keep the project moving along and within budget. So Jeff, when you are looking at a general contractor, what are the things that you're looking for in qualifying them?
Well, one of the things we look at is the ownership breakdown and the tenure, how long you've been doing it, tell us about some of your projects. We want to look at the current management team, understand their qualifications, how long have they been in place. Everybody's going to get a start somewhere, but do you really want your winery to be the guinea pig?
Right.
But that can be offset if you have a really talented management team that you've put together. We do reference checks. We mentioned that earlier. We like to talk to other people that you've done work for. Verification of insurance and agreements. We look at their history of completed projects, current projects, projects that are in the works. Do you have sufficient project management experience for the scope of the project? I mean, it's one thing to do a 10,000 case winery system, but if you're going to do a 100,000 case winery system, it's two different beasts. So do you really know what you're doing?
Absolutely, no question. We've seen that time and time again, and I've actually found clients that when they're calling in, sometimes they're wondering whether or not, because they've seen CRV do a number of very large projects, they're scared and whether or not they have that there's interest on our part to be doing a smaller project too. And I think that's one of the things that's unique about CRV is that we will be doing projects that are small all the way up to 650,000 square foot cold storage facilities. So no project is too small. What we are looking to be doing and where our experience comes to play is one of a kind, unique experiences, and for it to be centered around the wine industry and the craft brewing industry.
Some of the other things we look at, licensing. Make sure you have the proper licensing. It's a good standing. Do you have a clean civil, criminal record, clean credit record? We review their financial statements. We want to know that you're financially capable of completing the project. And another one, and maybe you can comment on this too, is a general contractor's ability to complete accurate draw requests. That's one of if there's going to be a problem, that's one of the areas, the inability to communicate in effective fashion to the bank. This is what we owe, this is what we've paid, this is how much is left.
Exactly. Actually, one of the ways that CRV likes to mitigate that is that we're going to put together a payment schedule before the contract is even in place. We have experience from building these facilities over the number of years to understand when the amount of money is going to need to be pulled. It's not a typical bell curve. It's going to be slightly skewed depending on the type of project and its size. But that in itself is, in the end, it's good communication. It allows the owners to understand how much money is going to be need to be spent. But more importantly, to your point, and what you want to see, you want to be seeing when is that money needed, and being able to match that up with the schedule, ensuring that the project is moving along as it was originally communicated and committed to. So Jeff, talk to us a little bit more about the importance of third-party inspections and why that's important to an institution like Live Oak.
Well, I think it's important to the borrower and the bank, because the borrower and the bank wants to see that this project is being, what I'm paying for is what I'm receiving in quality and in timely completion. That's why it's important to have people come in and review the budgets and the materials and make sure that these aren't substandard materials, or we're not seeing corners cut, because first you could get a flawed project, or even worse yet, there could be corners cut, which could trigger regulatory scrutiny, which you really don't want. No. We've had projects where all of a sudden inspectors are showing up and putting red tags in place. That's the worst. No. You just don't want that happening, neither the borrower nor the bank. But primarily to make sure you get the quality of work that you're paying for, because you're taking a lot of risk.
So another great aspect of third-party inspections that's really important to a general contractor is making sure that the subs are paid. This is critical to us. We want to make sure that our subs are paid so that they move along and get the job done efficiently, are motivated, and it gets done. So that's probably the greatest aspect of why we are really thrilled in having third-party inspections. It just keeps the project on time and moving along.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope all of you have found some value in this presentation that will allow you to start your winery construction project on the right foot and finish it on time and on budget.
As you can tell, there's a lot of moving parts to this whole process. But you don't need to be scared about it. By just taking your time and doing proper planning and finding a good institution such as Live Oak,
You see our view?
we can walk you through this process so that your dream can be coming true. We want to be giving special thanks to Kiever Vineyards. Thank you so much for hosting us here today, here in beautiful Napa Valley. We're so pleased to be here. Cheers to you, Jeff.
Cheers to you. Cheers to your project.